Damodar Pratap Singh joining us on NewsX. 2 years ago, NewsX brought you a campaign for a terror attack that was forgotten by the world. While Justin Trudeau in Canada was busy appeasing the Khalistanis, he was naive enough to not know that Khalistanis were responsible for the worst terror attack in the history of Canada. Air India Flight 182 was bombed by the Babbar Khalsa on the morning of June 23, 1985. 329 people on board, including 268 Canadian citizens, 27 British citizens and 22 Indian citizens were killed. The perpetrators were Inderjeet Singh Riat and Talvinder Singh Parmar. NewsX examined the John C. Major report. The official commission of inquiry into the investigation of the bombing exposed a series of errors and lapses from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service that could not stop this terror attack. You can visit Kanishka Files on NewsX's playlist, which is available on our YouTube channel, to see our investigative series. Now, Indian Union Minister Piyush Goyal has visited the Kanishka Memorial in Canada, met with the victims' families and paid his homage to them. We're now taking forward this campaign. It's time to build the Kanishka Memorial in India. We need to remind the world the reality of these Khalistani terrorists. This is a fight for truth and justice that we must continue fighting. It's time you join the campaign as well and make an appeal to build the Kanishka Memorial. Let's open it up and bring in at this point Sanjay Lazar, family of the Kanishka bombing victim. He's live with us. Also with us, Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat. Surinder Singh Lali, foreign affairs expert, also joins us. Mr. Lazar, let me begin with you first. What were your first thoughts when you saw the Union Commerce and Industry Minister visit the Kanishka Memorial there in Canada, pay homage to the victims who lost their loved ones, in that horrific bombing, as a family member of someone who died as well in that attack? What did you make of that gesture?
Thank you for having me on your show again, and thank you to NewsX for taking up this issue over the last 3 years. I've had the privilege and honor of being on many of your shows in relation to the Kanishka bombing and Khalistani issues and Canada, of course. But you've been the one channel that stood out. So before I say anything, I want to, convey my gratitude to your channel for bringing this in the eyes of the media, of the public, of everybody. It was touching to see the Honorable Minister at the memorial in Humber Bay in Toronto. We did get advance notice that the Honorable Minister was going to be visiting, so they wanted all families, as many families as they could connect, so that he could, individually meet them and speak to them. It's delightful. We've seen Hardeep Puri ji as a minister also going. We've seen Manmohan Singh ji as PM visiting the same memorial. Modi ji has visited 3 of the memorials. Ironically, Canada has 5 memorials across its country. Ireland has 1. And I have been writing to various governments for 40 years, or 38 years to be precise, to various prime ministers and presidents, saying that this was an Indian aircraft with Indian crew, with Canadian Indian passengers as well, and it was the territory of India. Why do we not have a memorial in India? And, even last year I was promised by an entire delegation that the PMO sent to Ireland, and I chased it up with various cabinet ministers, but to no avail. And I do hope that, this is the first step. And now the NewsX has taken it up in all earnest. And I can see, we've got the ambassador and Laliji here on the panel with me. I'm sure they will lend their weight to this campaign. And it's time. You see, this was the worst terror attack in the history of aviation until 9/11. It is till today the worst bombing. And whether it's Kanishka or whether it's the Khalistani atrocities across Punjab, the Indian people need to commemorate the dead who have lost their lives in all these terrorist attacks, whether there are Pulwama or number of them. And I think we need to build one central monument, that takes care of all these things. Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. And we saw, of course, the results of our campaign. Suddenly the country began talking about the issue then, and we saw Parliament also. The Indian Parliament paid tribute as well. Officially, the Lok Sabha Speaker led that, moments of silence in which the government MPs and opposition MPs participated. So obviously the country was speaking about it. But is it time to take that one step further? Looking at the sentiment, looking at the fact that a majority of the victims were from India or Indian origin, should we build this memorial here? Sanjay.
Yes, of course. Uday, I 100% credit your channel with the movement that began 2, 3 years ago, and I think you did it with a very conscious effort because you'd seen, the rewriting of history in Canada by Khalistani separatists, and of course the previous government with the NDP was affiliated with. We saw them raising this in the Canadian Parliament, and then your channel came out and interviewed so many of us victims, so many experts like Laliji and Ambassador Mukherjee, and so many others, and brought out whether it was the Justice Kirpal report. I remember those days. I remember the John Major report that you all went through episode by episode. So it has come into the collective conscience of our nation after for 38 years at that time. Today it's 40 years complete. We are in the 41st year. So I think it's a big step, and it is time. And it's been time for a long time to have a memorial, not to, deify the terrorists, but to make people remember the horrors of terrorism. The horrors of, I travel every year across the world, Uday, speaking against terrorism in all forms, whether it's in Israel, in Europe, or in North America, especially Canada and the US. And I keep talking about this as a victim who's lost his entire family as a teenager. I think it's essential that somebody who's lived the experience talks about it. And the important thing is, if you visit Ireland and look at the monument that they've created, the three governments, it's such a serene and peaceful place. If you go to one of the memorials across Canada,
Yes.
you'll see it. We need that in India.
Yes, yes. And why did people forget about it? Why was it forgotten for a long time before we suddenly remembered and, we brought it up at NewsX? Why was this forgotten, Sanjay?
Well, I can give you very controversial reasons. Maybe the ambassador is better placed because she's a diplomat, but I think it was convenient for the government of the day to have forgotten it. It was after decades and decades that Prime Minister Modi sent ministers to Ireland to commemorate it. And last year, a group of 7 Sikh ministers, MPs, MLAs, heads of various governments from various states traveled to Ireland. And I was with them. I met all of them. It was led by, Honorable Minister Hardeep Puri ji. So I think priorities have changed. The government of the day has changed. And of course, those days back in the 80s and the 90s, the government of that day didn't want to antagonize the Khalistanis. And that was the odd thing for me.
And also, how did it make you feel that the Canadian government was appeasing the Khalistanis?
Well, that came about when Justin Trudeau came in 7 or 8 years ago. And that was a gruesome moment for me. And that was what got me thinking that if these guys are trying to rewrite international history, it's like saying, Osama bin Laden didn't bomb or didn't create the 9/11 tragedy. And,
Yes.
and it's unthinkable. For me, as a kid who sat in a courtroom, a bulletproof courtroom in Vancouver, staring at these accused and through the John Major inquiry, it was gut-wrenching. We'd lost the families all over again. Therefore, I set out saying that, we need to correct this anomaly of history.
Okay.
We need to place the facts on record.
Okay. Okay. Let me bring in Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee in as well at this point. Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, we've seen the Indian Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal during his visit to Canada. He's, of course, there for trade negotiations. He has gone to the Kanishka Memorial. He has paid his homage there. Of course, Sanjay Lazar just told us about how he also spoke with other victims of the of the bombing as well, and their family members who were affected, of course, by this tragedy. What is the messaging at the highest levels through this gesture?
First of all, Uday, I want to congratulate NewsX, as my co-panelist said, and all of you. I've participated in all these programs with Rishabh and with you and with Vineet, or when we first tried to raise awareness and sensitivity of the Indian public of one of the greatest tragedies ever to hit India and to hit Air India. I was posted in New York when this happened. I still vividly remember one of my foreign service bosses' wife, sister, who went 3 times to get her seat on that ill-fated aircraft. She was waitlisted. Finally, on the third attempt, one lucky passenger dropped out and she got into the plane to meet her end. These are human tragedies which need to be highlighted. And yes, definitely, our government now under Prime Minister Modi has shown great sensitivity in going to these places, mourning with the citizens. The delegation led last year by Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, now by Piyush Goyal ji. And I completely agree with my co-panelists that we should set up a dignified memorial to mourn those who lost their lives in this manner, and to mourn also that the Canadian judicial system, knowing who they are, and this I learned from the NewsX debates I participated in 2 years ago, are still roaming free. In other words, justice has been delayed, but justice delayed doesn't mean that justice will not come. We have to ensure that those who were responsible for perpetrating this tragedy are brought to book. In the meantime, we will mourn them, we will mourn with their families, and we will build a national memorial. And finally, Vineet, I wanted to say that the worst part of this tragedy was that it was also due to lack of adequate vetting, etc. In those days, suitcases used to be loaded onto aircraft without checking if the passenger has checked in or not. Of course, you can then tell me, ma'am, if the guy is a suicide bomber, he won't care. I agree with you. But in those days, we didn't have any of those norms. We didn't take out baggage when the passenger has done a no-show, etc. And so we have to remember the all Indian crew, the pilots, the crew, the air hostesses, the Indians, Canadian Indians, the Indians, and all other human beings who met the most horrific death up in the skies. I believe the memorial in Ireland is beautiful.
Yes.
I haven't, but perhaps we could build something equally serene and equally beautiful in India, so that we do not forget our worst tragedy till 9/11. And again, compliments to NewsX for again and again sensitizing the Indian public, and through you, an entire global public, of the fact that people have not forgotten 9/11.
Absolutely.
Then why do they forget the Kanishka?
You know, and we've put out this appeal. We put out a hashtag as well on, hashtag Build Kanishka Memorial, of course, in India. And we're asking our viewers as well to tweet in, to put out posts as well, to join this campaign. I'm happy that all of you have joined this campaign today as well. But what would be the significance of having such a memorial in India for you, Ambassador Mukherjee?
Having such a memorial in India demonstrates that India has not forgotten its dead. Demonstrates that India mourns the greatest tragedy in aviation history before 9/11. That India remembers the grief of these families, their family members, one of whom is here with us. I know one or two of them personally. I remember being told of this tragedy in New York. I was posted there. And the empty feeling, because one of the people who died was the former UN High Commissioner for Namibia. He was going to India for a meeting. I still remember thinking, oh my God, what is this family going to do? What will all these devastated relatives do and think? And I remember it so vividly, Uday, as if it happened to me yesterday. If it had such an impact on me as a very young officer, first secretary level officer serving in PMI New York, I can imagine what the relatives feel. And yes, India, the land of Sanatan Dharma, the land of compassion and mercy, we must remember and mourn our dead. just like we do for Jallianwala Bagh and for all the other tragedies. We must mourn our dead.
Okay.
Only when we mourn them through a memorial can we close the chapter. We can't close the chapter without mourning our dead, and we can't close the chapter
Yes.
until those who perpetrated it are brought to justice for them.
Indeed. Surinder Singh Lali, you've seen those visuals, of course, coming in from Canada. What did you make of that? How significant is this moment in remembering and ensuring we do not forget the Kanishka bombing? We continue to remember those who lost their lives, and we do not, forget the families also who've suffered and continue to suffer so many years later.
Well, Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I quote, "Injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere," quote close. Well, you just asked both Sanjay ji and Ambassador Ma'am this significance. Well, we need closure to it. Not only just the family members, but we need to set the right precedents. We need to set a precedent for the law enforcement, the civil society, and for generations to come. I mean, end of the day, it has to have closure. And at the broad Indian Sea, I must congratulate NewsX and both my fellow esteemed panelists here that we've been doing at least our bit through NewsX and me as a proud Indian Sikh, demolishing these fringe rogues who were successful in influencing, Justin Trudeau, and you said that was naive. I think he was too foolish to be naive, so I won't even call him naive. So that's one. And two, even within today's context, if you see, I think this disease kind of runs deep with the developed economies. I mean, the President of the United States was recently on record saying that, India's a hellhole and we're laptop gangsters. And only if had it not been for our generosity, we spared Marco Rubio for not making him a fool out of himself by saying, he says, "Who said that?" And then he said, "There are idiots everywhere." But lo and behold, Mr. Rubio, that was your Honorable President of the United States who's been making such remarks about dark-skinned people. But yeah, there was enough evidence even back then that, this gentleman called Parmar and Riyadh were up to some mischief. The Canadian intelligence was on top of them. But there was some sort of a communication gap and an ego trip between the RCMP and CSIS, because CSI was then formed. So between them, this intelligence fell between the gaps. NDP had given enough warnings that there is something not right. But these individuals who always thought that, and if I may quote Ujjwal Dosanjh, the Premier of British Columbia, he said that the statement which was made then was that, no, we won't worry about them. These are, the blue turban fighting the black turban. They live in the ghettos and they are doing their menial job. We won't worry about it. But it's very unfortunate, that a lot of lives were lost. And another, in an act of a Freudian slip by, then Prime Minister Mulroney, I mean, he calls Rajiv Gandhi and expresses condolences, which was the right thing to do. But for what? Out of the 329 people, 280 were Canadian citizens. It was 24 Indians, as Madam Saiba, Dr. Saiba rightly said, 22 were air hostesses, and there were 82 children on it. So this was very unfortunate, and I'm so happy that it's never late for such closures. And forget the fringe rogues, but I am going to congratulate on this channel Sanjay. I think you don't have to wear a turban to be a Sikh if you follow the right values. Sanjay has been compiling an anthology which says, if I may quote, the global Khalistani threat. So
Yes.
Sanjay ji, I'm with you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Doing is
And Surinder Lali, would you also, Surinder Lali, join this campaign to build the Kanishka Memorial in India?
Tell me the time and the place. So I'm in India, I will be there. If you want to create a movement, my physical presence, and of course my moral standing is there with it. Let me tell you the impact of it. 5 houses away, there was a family called the Sharma family, Mr. G. and Sharma family. And unfortunately, they lost all 4 people. I still remember I was a kid then, and that ought to be the impact. My father came back home from the funeral because we live in a gated community with 97 houses My father came and said that I felt guilty wearing a turban. Not that I have done anything for it. Not that anybody said anything at the prayer meeting. But it's very unfortunate that the individuals, these fringe robes, thugs who call themselves Sikhs, had done this act. So such is the impact that, today, after 41, 42 years, I feel ashamed of these individuals who supposedly themselves call Sikhs. So I don't think we should call them the Sikh Khalistani. We can simply call them fringe robes or simply using Sikh religion, the great Sikh religion, for their nefarious activity to that.
Yes. All right. Let me also, in fact, quickly, ask you about why Surinder Singh Lali, this issue was also ignored. Before I go back to Ambassador Mukherjee, I have to also ask you your perspective on why we forgot about the Kanishka bombings. Why did it have to be NewsX that brought up this issue? Suddenly got the country talking again. Suddenly got Indian Parliament to have a mourning for this again. Now we see, of course, under Narendra Modi's leadership, the Union Commerce Minister goes there, Piyush Goyal. But why did we forget about this for so many years?
I could write a book on this because for the longest time, the biggest benefit of liberalization was that we got an identity of our own. We weren't controlled by the state and one state media. This is a new India. We fight for our rights. We've been going around the world and making places. So the same, the subservient, Indian, which there's a movie by Peter Sellers, if you must see the party. They are very unfortunate how they show Indians. But we were always kind of scared to even fight for our rights. So there. But now you see we fight for our rights because this is not the same India with the fourth largest economy, more educated people, and internet penetration is very high. So I think it took time for us to come out, but now the new India makes the right noises. I mean, I'm just going to conclude by saying, look at the treatment Marco Rubio was given on his recent trip, to say the least. So now we're giving it back to them in the language which they best understand. It started with Devyani, who regarded his thing, and now it is happening.
Point taken. Ambassador Mukherjee, also, the appeasing. That's why the timing also was important to bring up this issue, because forget about ignoring the Khalistanis, there was blatant appeasing of it happening and no one was calling it out.
That was so unfortunate because the vast majority of our Sikh brothers and sisters condemned it completely because it's totally against the principles of Sikhism.
Yes.
A religion that came into being, and I'm a historian apart from being a diplomat, whose gurus have met the most horrific ends, who have never ever let down the Guru Granth Sahib and what it stands for. If a few Sikhs turn rogue, do they understand the impact it has among those who don't know Sikhism? I know all about Sikhism. On those who don't know, they'll say that ye log jo hai sab terrorists. It is terrible. They have done a great disservice as Sikhs wearing turbans and doing this, which is why it is very important to bring closure, because I, as an Indian citizen, am firmly of the view that India would not have gained independence but for all Indians fighting for independence, including our Sikh brothers and my own patriots in Bengal.
Okay.
And therefore, closure. But we also need to tell
absolutely. I've run out of time.
Right.
Yes, I've run out of time. Okay. I know you want to say something, Mr. Lali, but I've run out of time. 20 seconds, Sanjay. Do you want to have a quick last word? Okay, Mr. Lali, also 20 seconds. Okay, 20 seconds. Yes, I have to end.
I would like to thank NewsX and, I will share a petition. I'd like you all to take this up to your level. Let's take this up, and it could be a combined memorial of all these tragic terrorist attacks that we faced in
No, it's needed. It's needed. Yes, Mr. Lali. Yes, Mr. Lali.
Punjab was divided 65%. Went to them, 35%.
Okay, we've lost your connection, unfortunately, Mr. Lali. We can't hear you. Your audio is acting up. Okay, I've run out of time. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us and your support for this campaign. Ambassador Mukherjee, Surinder Singh Lali and Sanjay Lazar. Let's slip into a short break.